Hello, everyone, and welcome to Modern Morality Rights and Wrongs, a Masonic podcast. I'm joined here by Tommy.
Glad to be here.
And Johnny.
Hello.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoy. Just a disclaimer for the audience. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and do not represent any Grand Lodge or subordinate lodge within Freemasonry. This content is for informational and discussion purposes only. Thank you. Welcome to Modern Morality, Rights, and Wrongs. So this is a very special episode for us. One, it's our first, episode you get to see us. But it's also a Christmas episode. This is going to be a very short compared to what we normally do. But it's a very short episode talking about Christmas and so on. And we'll get more involved with it here in just a second. I just want to say, typically there is three of us here. Tommy is not with us this week due to the holidays and how the scheduling works with family and friends. We would never want to take him away from that. So we decided to do this on our own. And when Tommy will hopefully join us again next week. So as always, I'm here with Johnny. And hopefully he and I can get down to the root of Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Absolutely. So the main question I'm hoping that we can kind of answer is the Christmas spirit still there? Now, to tie it back to Masonry, Masonry is all about faith, hope, and charity. And Christmas really is the same thing and embodies the same symbolisms. So the question I have is Christmas still that for a lot of people, or is it a way to line people's pockets? Is capitalism and consumerism, taking root and tainted what Christmas is really supposed to be?
I think it has.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
So I guess my next question is, what are some very specific examples that we can kind of dig into?
Well, I think the examples are really case by case. I think they're individuals. I think it's more the aggregate behavior of consumers that they're focused more on the material. I can't pull an example off the top of my head from a corporate standpoint, because they're all out there to make the money. They're doing what you expect them to do. I think it's driven by the consumer.
So I guess the question, this is probably going to make a lot of kids mad, but thank goodness, according to our analytics, most of the people who watch our show are well above 30, if not 35, not, in their 50s. But I really don't think what I'm going to say is going to make any of you guys mad, but if there's any kids watching, I'm so sorry. Here's a question for you. Is gift giving in the spirit of Christmas at all?
Yes. But
Also,
materialistic and money as a measure of it is not.
Elaborate.
So, the best presents that you can possibly get, or at least I feel like the best presents I can get, is something somebody has put their time into, their thoughtfulness into, not how much they could swipe on their credit cards to say they thought about me.
Yeah, well, this is another thing that we can probably expand in other episodes, but I think that goes back to convenience. I feel like convenience has ruined the whole idea of, gift giving. One of the conversations that Alex is my wife, by the way, guys. And well, your daughter. So one of the things that she and I talk about is how back before everything was so accessible and so easy to, just so easy to catch on to or to get, it wasn't as instant. People had true craftsmanship and art. They were artisans. They were so skillful in almost everything. Mm-hmm. Where people would, and we watched the Antique Roadshow and Pawn Stars, and you see people who had like real talents, and that's what they contributed to their families and to their friends. The gifts they got were all handmade. They were very beautiful. And it took them weeks, if not months, to complete certain things to give to their loved ones. And now there's really there's still thought behind it. I mean, obviously you have to have some form of thought to understand or to know what people really want, what they can need or what they could use, so on and so forth. But you don't really work as hard. That doesn't mean it doesn't lose meaning, I guess, but you really don't work as hard to please others. So,
Like I said, it's
um,
case by case basis, and you gotta weigh it against the personal relationship you have with each gift giver and receiver.
so one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the idea of charity in Christmas time. Now, as Masons, we're taught to give back and build the community up whenever we can. There is no special
Hmm.
time to give back, but there really is this emphasis on Christmas.
Hmm.
Christmas is the time of the year to help others, to give back, and to do what you can to make your community better, whatever that looks like. Um, so I mean, I have a few Christmas stories in my life, but Johnny, I mean, you have a lot more experience than I do. I'm sure you have something you can share that would kind of tie to the
Really,
theme here.
really, we're already getting into the old,
Well, yeah.
referring to my age this early in the episode. Okay, yes, I do. I have some experience. I want to hear yours though.
Well, so I really have one Christmas story that that really, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the best way I can describe it is the spirit of Christmas has ever really only been present one time in my life, and it was the time in well, my whole family's lives where we were the most in need. My grandfather was a very proud man, wouldn't accept charity from anybody. So growing up with him, he we didn't eat there for a little while when we lost the company in the recession. And we didn't have a big Christmas. And I mean, a lot of people at that time didn't. It was a very tough time for a lot of people, just a lot of families. But he ended up giving us a Christmas, even though we really couldn't afford one. It wasn't
Hmm.
much, but it was sweet. One of the things that I remember is every year my brother and I would run up the stairs, go looking under the tree just to see what was there. And this particular year, we did the same things like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Ran up the stairs. I say ran, we snuck up the stairs, we didn't want to get in trouble. Went to the dining room where the tree was, and there was just two small little bundles, and they were small, of gifts for me and my brother. Well, my grandmother was sitting at the table when we came up there, and she gave us our gifts, and the gifts was a pack of playing cards, a nightlight, and I think it was like a bar of candy. The sweets, they get devoured so quickly. Those don't really stick in your memory as much. But we ended up playing cards with my grandparents like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we did that for hours. And honestly, it's one of the best Christmas memories I have. That
So yeah, that's a great example. And I'll add to that by saying that if you took all the experiences, since you think I've got so many, and you just think back on them, I can't tell you a Christmas when I got this one exceptional gift or this handful of Christmases where I could tell you what I got that year. It's not about what you got. What I can tell you is that I can remember most of the Christmases when family was together, when we had Christmas breakfast together. I can tell you the meal was just about the same every year. You looked forward to it, but you got to see people that you don't regularly see. And you knew they were going to be there. You knew that was a tradition. You knew you were going to spend time with them. And it was something you could always look forward to and always remember. The gifts were nice. That was fun, but it was passing. It's a passing, fleeting memory. It's not what sticks with you. It's not what makes the family relationships. Um, so yeah, I think sharing that sentiment is more important than sharing a specific Christmas episode, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, well, I guess going back to the original question was regarding the capitalism behind Christmas. How we all know, and I'm sure everyone is aware, that although we love the kids in our community and we love the kids in our lives, there's a lot of challenges that these kids are facing. And I say
mhm.
everybody is facing because of the kids. Um, Parenting styles are much different. Work ethic is much different. There are so many differences between kids nowadays and 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and so on. The kids nowadays, they are growing up in a very materialistic world. How do we, as not only just Masons, but as members of this society, how do we inspire and enable those kids to learn what Christmas is truly supposed to be about? How do we um, lead by example in that when every turn is an advertisement for some flashy new thing that appeals psychologically to children?
No, I think you're going down the right track. I think that it's important that we lead by example. I think we have to look for opportunities that we can set those examples and make those examples known, as opposed to the charity part of it, where Masons actually, if you subscribe to what Masonry teaches you, you give for the right reasons of giving. You don't give for acknowledgement. You don't give for for reciprocy. You give because you're supposed to give. You give because you're supposed to support your community. And back in the day, I've heard numerous stories where a lot of times Masonic lodges were full of members that were business owners, retailers, professional roles, white collar. And so what they would do is they would get the local uh, grocer to open up his store, and they would shop for families, and they would leave the groceries the meals that they put together, they would leave those meals on the doorsteps of the families they knew needed them. No cards, no names, no acknowledgement, doing it for the right reason. And I think we've got to get back to that as far as the charity goes.
Well, let
But
me say this one thing.
that's not to replace though what you're talking about, Mikey, is setting the example, because that is done so behind the scenes that it's not a good avenue. I mean, word will get out, obviously, but that's not a good avenue to set the example for what the spirit of Christmas should be. And I think to do that, Masons need to be more active in the community. I think they need to be more visible in the community, not for the giving. The giving should be done as we just described. But I think you've got to bring it to the reason for the season. And I think you have to exhibit that so the public can see it in some kind of programs or some kind of a public forum.
So one of the things that when I was going to interject was the consequence behind charity for a Mason should never be the attention or notoriety that comes with it.
Correct.
The consequences of charity for a Mason should be that goodwill is spread.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Point
100%.
blank.
And
One
it's
of the
something
things
we
that,
all need to work toward. I mean, we're not all there every day, but that's what we should work
well,
toward. Yes.
some of the podcasts I've been listening to, and there's not many Masonic podcasts. I think there's three or four tops that I have found. One of them, I was listening to their episode here recently, and they were talking about self-serving charity work. And one of the things that they were talking about was not necessarily that people were using charity as a way to be self-serving. It was more of charity in itself allows Masons to make an impact. And then it's pretty much organic marketing after that. You're opening yourself and the goodness of your men, of your lodge to the community, whatever that looks
Right.
like.
Right.
The story that this guy told was, 20 years ago, there'd be an elderly lady who can't take care of her yard. She talked to one Mason, and then the next day, 15 people were there cleaning up her yard.
Right.
And that's the impact Masonry used to have on the community. But one of the trends that I have noticed, and the Christmas season just kind of ties along with it, is everything's being washed down with, really, it comes down to money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not profitable, therefore it's not important, and that,
Right.
sadly,
And
charity kind of falls. That's
back to the convenience you mentioned, which I think you were spot on with the convenience, and that's changed things. Is a lot of lodges try to throw money at it, have fundraisers, throw money at it, buy gifts, and say we did our part at Christmas. No, you really didn't.
no.
You gave materially, but are you giving of yourself? Are you giving of your message? Are you giving of your of what you expect out of society to be that
Right.
social leader that Masons should be. Now I've seen some lodges that do accomplish what we're talking about, and they accomplish it in different ways. Some lodges pride themselves on an annual Christmas party for the public, not just for the members. Everything from uh, singing carols together to having guest speakers to, I mean, I've seen all that. I've also seen, if you want to get a little bit more Masonic, but a little less specifically Christian, is as you see well, I guess it is Christian, but you see the celebration of the Saints John's. Um, that's usually, well, there's two Saints John's in Masonry. There's the Saint John the Apostle, and there's the Saint John the Evangelist and
Baptist
Saint
and the
John the
evangelist.
Baptist. Right?
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
And Saint John the Baptist is actually celebrated in the middle of the summer, but they're both celebrated at the solstices, which brings it kind of back to some non-Christian pagan type history. But Masonry is not a specific religion. Masonry accepts men of all walks of life who share the same morals and beliefs and beliefs in supreme being. Where we're at, most people are Christian in Masonry. You get in other parts of the world, though, it's predominantly other religions. But you'll see some commonalities about the morals, and the Masons here where we're at, United States, Southeast, you see them usually leaning toward taking Christmas as an opportunity to show their membership's Christianity association. And so a lot of times that involves the Christ story. It also involves um, the commercial side of it with Santa Claus. But you see all those things that most Christian cultures have. Masons will participate in to be seen in the public, to be seen as uh, conforming to those local beliefs. Um, but that shouldn't keep us from also talking about just morals and Bible in general, regardless of whether you're what your religion preference is. Um, Bottom line, Mikey, you hit on it. We've got to get out there. We've got to be with the people. We've got to be seen. We've got to be in the public, and we can't just write a paycheck or write a check and say, "Here's my part." And doing what I'm suggesting, though, should not negate that. We should still do our charity, but the charity part should not be seen.
Now, there's one individual who I'm not going to name on the podcast, but he has a phrase, and as much as he and I have had our differences in the past, I will say that his phrase is really good. Masons can contribute one of three, or they can contribute three things.
Some combination of three things.
Right.
Mhm.
So Masons can contribute their time, their money, or their talents. And now the spirit of Christmas ideally is you would want to, and honestly, should be the spirit of a Mason. At any given opportunity, you want to be given all three. If you can't afford it, you can give your money to those who are in need, or to pay for things that they need. At the same
I've
time,
heard
you
that.
can
I've heard that same quote, and I like it. I've used it. I've stolen it and used it myself.
yeah,
Usually, though, Mikey, that's used in the context of what a Mason can do for his fraternity. But what
right.
we're talking about here is how to apply that same concept into what Masons in general can do to apply that toward their community.
Well, and this is
So,
something, and we will apply this to another episode, I'm sure. But what you
mhm,
just said is exactly what's wrong with a lot of masonry today. Is people are not applying it outside of their lodge; they're only
correct,
applying it within the lodge.
right.
Um, and honestly, you should be willing to do things for your lodge. I mean, your
Hmm.
brethren are there for a reason. They're there to, they're supposed to be there to help guide and direct you, build you up, and you reciprocate that. You're supposed to also be there to help guide and direct others. And sometimes that comes in the form of doing labor on the lodge, having work days, doing the events, whatever that looks like. But you should never look away from the original purpose of masonry, which is to become better for not only yourself but for the community, for the places you live, your family.
Hmm.
Um, and once we take the selfishness out of masonry, it can really become pure. And right now, there's a lot of selfishness, or I don't even know that it's necessarily selfish. I think it's ignorance. I think people who come in follow someone else and this is all they know. They don't know
I,
what they're
I'm
capable of
I'm going to
in
say
regards to
ignorance, and I'm also going to say laziness. And I'm going to tell you why I say laziness.
yes,
Because
no, no, I know where you're going. I absolutely agree.
let's take for example, it used to be a day when the Masonic lodges participated in things like the Christmas parades, and you don't see that often anymore. You see Shriners because Shriners are out there trying to, takes a lot of money to run those hospitals, and they have to raise money every
Absolutely.
chance they get. I get it. Masons shouldn't be out there to raise money. Masons should be out there to show here's what the fraternity offers the community. Here's the examples we want to give you as, that to live by for young kids to, aspire to be those pillars of the community and examples. But why they don't do that as much as they used to, one is the convenience thing, Mikey, you hit on. But the other is that it's being lazy in that they don't learn masonry. A lot of people enter the fraternity for the wrong reasons, unfortunately, and they get through the ballot box and before you know it sometimes. But anyway, they're in it for the wrong reasons, and they, like for instance, maybe they join just to become a Shriner one day, and they're not learning all the true Masonic lessons. Well, um, if they would apply themselves and learn, they would find out that this charity thing is the only thing that's supposed to be done undercover. They also have this perception from some of their other peers in the fraternity that everything's so secret you can't be out in public. That's not true either. There's only a few secrets in Freemasonry, and there is no reason we can't be in public. There's no reason we can't be participating with everybody arm in arm. There's no reason that we can't be out there setting those examples. If you find an excuse for not doing that, then you're just being lazy and leaning toward the convenience as a Mason. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it like it is today.
You're exactly correct in my eyes. No, one of the things that I have personally done is I try to explain masonry to people who are very skeptical of it. Um, I have tried my best to, educate myself in what I can and can't say and what I can and can't share. When you have people who, they go to the internet's always going to pull up the worst thing, always.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a consumer market. They're going to, if you look up what's wrong with you, the first thing you're going to find is the worst thing that has the most expensive cure. And
Right.
it's just the way it is. But in regards to masonry, I have described it as this, and I think this is the easiest way that you can explain it to people who are skeptical of the secret part. The question I have is, growing up, did you and your friends ever have an inside joke? And
Always.
right. And I was like, if everyone knew the
Don't
inside
ask me to
joke,
share some of them either.
no, no, that's the whole point. It's not supposed to be. But I was like, if everyone knew your inside joke, would it still be funny? And the answer is no, of course not.
Right.
Um, the idea behind the secrets of Freemasonry are not that they're going to be, it's not necessarily a treasure that everyone's going to dig into and ruin. It's more of you lose the impact of these quote unquote secrets the moment that everybody knows them. And in reality, and we've shared this before, the Old Testament contains almost all of our secrets. and and
Mm-hmm.
and if that means I'm encouraging you guys to go read the Bible, go for it. But like an
You
inside
just you
joke,
just don't know where they're at in the Bible, but they're there.
exactly. Yeah, that's the joke. That's the inside joke. Is you just don't know what you're looking at.
Right.
But
There's no reason why the local Masonic Lodge can't have a float in a parade with a nativity scene and, have kids on the float spreading the story of Christ. I mean, there's no reason for we can't do that.
no,
Like I say, the vast majority, if not almost entirely in the geography we live in, Masons are Christian.
right,
Um, so there's no reason we can't do that at Christmas time. Matter of
right.
fact, we should be doing that at Christmas time.
No,
And
absolutely. And one of the
there's a
things
lot
that
of kids out there that will never hear the Christmas story, and some of them are not going to church. They're not going to get it there. They're not going to get it at home, which is unfortunate. There's just no reason we can't do our own outreach as Masons.
right. No, and one of the things is regarding the whole Christmas and Christian aspect of lodge. is that yeah, most of our, we live in the South. It's the Bible Belt. Most, if not every single one of the Masons I know are Christian, and we as brethren honestly should encourage them to live out in their faith. I'm not saying
Yes.
we shouldn't push a religion on anybody, but
Nope.
if they are Christian and you are also Christian, you understand the values of Christianity
Right.
and Masonry, those complement one another. They're not
Right.
competitive.
Right.
So it's our duty to not only serve our community, it's also our duty to serve our brethren and encourage them to live out what they say that they believe.
Agree 100%.
So, well, I
That
told you that.
that's the lead by example. That's the, show them it's okay and show them it's preferred that they need to be out there doing that and not just, claiming it and staying at home. Just saying.
Um, I want to end on a very serious question, and this is probably going to be the most controversial of this episode. Should Santa Claus exist?
Yes,
Why?
because I'm gonna stick to Masonry loves allegory. The spirit of Santa Claus is very much alive. He's very real. Not the
Good
consumer
point.
Santa Claus, the spirit of Santa Claus.
Well, I mean, if you look at the traditional Santa Claus, it was never about consumer. It wasn't about, I mean, it was the idea that kids woke up, they worked hard trying to, do right things for the whole year. And this was kind of their break, their reward. Um, so no, I like it. I was going to say no, but I mean, honestly, I understand where you're coming from. I think that's a very good point
Mhm.
about the allegory. Using
Now,
Santa Claus as
you've got some other geography differences there too. You go to other parts of the world, and it's not Santa Claus being a
as Father
positive
Christmas.
reward.
Yeah.
It's no, it's Krampus being a negative reward. Here's
Yeah.
what's going to happen to you if you do bad versus here's what's going to happen if you do good. There's a
Yeah.
time and place for both.
There's a new movie called Red One, and it kind of explores that concept of punishing the bad but also rewarding the good. It is a very interesting movie if you haven't seen it. As a
Which
ripped J.
isn't every. I mean, what's the title of our podcast, right? It's
Yeah.
good and evil, right? But isn't that every religion? Every religion has that, and
Well,
Christmas is just reflected through that.
right. And we've spoken about this in at length in several, previous episodes, but without a religious backing, morality can't exist. It really can't. And the reason I say that is if there's no consequence to your behavior, then how can you define what's right or wrong?
Correct. Yep.
So and all that, most of that, if not all of it, stems directly from religion, specifically the Abrahamic religions, which
Right.
Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Right.
Um, yeah. So
But
Santa Claus should
you do
exist.
realize now you're opening up a whole nother can of worms that we're not going to have time for today. But you do
No,
realize a lot of modern day Christmas here in our world is it has a lot of things that has nothing to do with their faith or Christianity or
right?
nothing with Christianity. Like, for instance, there's a lot of the symbolism around Christmas time that it's pagan. It's not
It's
Christian,
very pagan, right? Absolutely.
very pagan. So, Masons are not aligned to one religion. Masonic organization is a fraternity. It's not a religion or a faith. And one of its requirements is that all the men that join it are, for the ladies' organizations that are Masonic related too, is belief in your supreme being and belief in, you have a belief system and that you
Right.
follow your belief system, you improve yourself through your belief system, and that you study your belief system so that you understand it. Um, how we practice in the examples we set doesn't matter if they're pagan, doesn't matter if they're Christian, doesn't matter what they are. We should be setting those examples regardless. Did I
Jesus.
say something funny?
No, you look like Krampus. The
Oh,
Masonic symbol looks like you have horns.
ah,
Well, I think that should pretty much do it. One of the things that I said before in the previous episode is I always want to charge our viewers with something. What action are we encouraging them to perform or questions they need to reflect on? If you have one, I would encourage you to share that. So, what do you charge the audience with?
You're saying share that on our website? Is that where, I mean, let's be specific. Where are they
Not
supposed to
every
share that
episode.
at?
I think every episode should end with us addressing the audience directly with a call to action, so to speak.
Well, we've actually called our Masonic brethren out pretty well in this episode,
Yeah.
I think. I would call the rest of our listeners out by saying keep an open mind, uh, study, learn all the angles before you criticize anything, including masonry. Um, I'd say just, value each other's opinions. Peace and harmony comes from doing that, and we're talking about the season of peace and harmony.
Right.
So I'd
Well,
say respect each other. That would be my call out.
well, I think my charge is to take all the joy that you're likely to get during Christmas and do whatever you can to give that joy to someone who doesn't have it. Whatever that looks like. If it's passing
Hmm.
on a meal, if it's actually putting yourself in labor to help a family, to help an individual. Um, a lot of us, there's always somebody who has it worse.
Hmm.
Take what things you have in your life, what joys you have in your life, and do whatever you can to share it.
There's a
Um,
lot of people who have bad memories around Christmas time. Sometimes just giving them an ear, giving them attention, giving them some human interaction. A lot of times that's the giving that means more than the materialistic.
awesome. Well, everyone, again, this is Modern Morality, Rights and Wrongs. This is not technically our episode 2, but this is more of a Christmas special. um,
Yep.
we we definitely enjoyed the
This is to
time.
keep everybody in the habit till we can get
Exactly. Now, just a reminder, this is new to us, so please give us any feedback that you possibly can in regards to the technology, the setup. If there's any critiques you have, please let us know. We have the website, www.modernmoralitymedia.com, which will also be linked in the videos. Um, Again, thank you so much. Merry Christmas from us at Modern
Merry
Morality.
Christmas.
And yeah, have a good holiday. Thank you for listening to Modern Morality. Please visit our website at modernmoralitymedia.com and leave us some feedback about the show. We look forward to exploring more with you. Until next time.